the Q&A. Thank you very much. Looking forward to this. I'm going to hand it to Joe. Steve and I will be in the chat as well to hang out with you guys. So take it away, Joe.
Awesome. Thanks, Lacey. Thanks, Steve. And hi, everybody. My name is Joe Computo. I go by Computo, C-O-M-P-U-T-O. And I have been producing music for, I guess, almost 21 years now. Started when I first went to Berklee College of Music in Boston many years ago. And I have been kind of picking up pieces along the way. And I've been teaching electronic music for a number of years now. I've been at MI for, I guess, about 3.5 years now, almost 4 years. And we've been having a great time. I was originally hired to teach the Max for Live class, and Ableton in that 3.5 years has really come a long, long way, and excited to show you some of the stuff in the new version. There's a lot of new things happening in this version of Ableton, and I would certainly recommend that you seek out the information notated in the manual in the new update. If you want to be in the top 99th percentile of users of anything like Ableton, it's going to benefit you greatly to do some research and read the manual. That's where I think it really starts to gain a whole nother level of traction. And Ableton does a great job of documenting their material if you aren't already aware. So I'm going to bring up Ableton right now. Zoom's trying to pull some shenanigans over here, but there we go. And I will bring up your Q&As in a little bit here, and we might touch on some of the topics that you've mentioned there, but this isn't necessarily going to be an Ableton, kind of beginner's take necessarily. So if you are into Ableton, if you want to learn more about Ableton, I should say, from a beginner's standpoint, we have a number of different programs that I think might be worth checking out on that level. We also go quite deep in our sound design classes, which, as Lacey mentioned, I helped design, shaped, I suppose, for MI. And so we get into a lot of these things. And as you see, Ableton 11, which just came out yesterday, has a number of changes to it. Things happen in real time in our field, in the music technology field. And that means that we have to be aware. We have to be, keeping our ears to the ground to know what's happening in our industry. And that way we can be on the front edge of these types of things, as opposed to hearing about it from our friends months on. And it's good to be aware of the new things. It's also, as Lacey mentioned, potentially volatile to use things fresh out of the gate. The day after a release is always a shaky time for any software release. And so, we might see disaster strike at some point. We'll find out. I have to say, I've been testing the beta version of Ableton 11, which is to Ableton's credit, they run a public beta test for a few months before they release any major version update. And so these things get road tested by producers, day-to-day users. A lot of different people get to try this stuff out before it ends up in our computers brand new as the new version. So in a sense, it has been tested many, many, many times. But that said, you never know. Okay, let's get into some of the quirky, interesting things that I think are coming in Ableton 11. Now, Ableton has been, for a long time, following some of the major trends in the music industry. One of those things is, one of the current trends is MPE, Midi Polyphonic Expression. And this is now commonly called Midi 2.0 since a year ago, January, when the Midi Manufacturers Association got together at NAMM in 2020 and codified officially the MPE standard into the Midi standard, thus ushering in Midi 2.0, the first major change to the Midi spec of this magnitude, probably since Midi became a thing 40 years ago. And what does MPE mean? There are a lot of weird and funky and cool controllers out there right now that give us access to MPE functionality. What this essentially means is each finger that we play, each note that we play on the instrument is essentially given its own synthesizer. One, I think, useful way to demonstrate something like this is with a synthesizer and a standard MIDI controller keyboard. For instance, if we wanted to have some sort of key or maybe modulation wheel or pitch bend based change to the sound while playing multiple notes, right? This is MIDI polyphonic expression. So the concept really follows multiple note performance. So for mono performance, basses, stuff like that might not be that much more mind-blowing, but for chord-based performance, it's pretty cool. The premise is with a standard MIDI controller, if we do pitch bend, if we do modulation, if we change the frequency on our filter, it's going to change that material for all of the notes being performed. For instance, if I play a triad, let's actually play something that can be filtered, like a sawtooth wave. Right? If I want some sort of change to the sound in traditional MIDI performance, it's going to affect all of our notes. And one of these techniques might be using velocity or pressure, depending on our controllers. We might have access to different MIDI messages. But with the new breed of MPE controllers, like the Roly Seaboard, the Sensel Morph, the Linstrument from Roger Lynn, and with some new functionality added to Push, Ableton's dedicated hardware controller, we can start to gain per note modulation functionality. So that if we want something to affect one individual note of our chord, or to be able to expressively change something with one particular note in our chord, we can do that within a number of the instruments inside of the Ableton universe. Some have not been fully implemented in the MPE universe yet. Wavetable, sampler, simpler. I think these are the three that have been MPE implemented so far, but surely it's likely to come to some of these other synthesizers. And let's look at an example of how this might be different. Over here in, I don't know if you can see this, but I have on my other camera here, Push. There we go. So let's talk about assignment of something. Let's talk about, let's say, assigning this filter frequency. Now, typically, we would assign this to maybe, if we have this functionality in our synthesizer, velocity. Maybe we would assign this to our mod wheel, something that would allow us to actually change this over time. But we have the additional function now of pressure added to our synthesizers. If we're using a proper MPE controller, we have an entire MPE dedicated tab for velocity, note-based pitch bend, sliding, and pressure. The pressure here and the pressure on our MIDI tab will work the same way. And we can start to apply this just like we would assign anything in Wavetable. I'll apply filter frequency to pressure sensitivity. So the idea here is that when I play one note, I can apply additional pressure after I play and while holding that note, and we can get movement out of the filter. Now, maybe we'll put this into classic mode, get some super saws going here, get it really over the top. Some of our rave horns. Now, in push, we can kind of demonstrate the difference between polyphonic expression and monophonic expression simply by toggling a mode. To make monophonic expression or polyphonic expression work inside of push, we have to go into the setup and enable polyphonic pressure. It's the fourth knob item in the setup on push. If we set it back to mono, which it likely will be set to by default when you open Ableton 11. If I play a triad, and I apply pressure to any of those three notes in the triad, we hear the filter open up for all of those notes. The filter opens up, the entire chord is revealed, and we hear this kind of this pressure-based filter wash. It's affecting all of the notes of the chord, though. Now, if we switch push to poly mode, poly pressure mode, go back out of setup, and now play this chord. As I apply pressure to each note individually and release pressure from the other notes, it starts to filter only the pressure, the heavier pressure pad, right? Now we could apply pressure to all three of those notes and get change to all three of these filters. We might be saying, what three filters? Well, I'm playing three notes. And for each of those notes, essentially an entire instance of wavetable has to run in the background so that we can apply this type of pressure, this unique performance-based expression. So this is just maybe one example of this. We can start to apply other things. When we load wavetable by default now, in fact, we're going to find that unlike before, one of the three distortion-based modes in the oscillators, the methods we have to alter and distort whatever wavetables we have loaded into our wavetable oscillator, this will automatically be mapped to pressure sensitivity. So automatically inside of a new instance of wavetable, pressure is turned on. It's very light, it's only 10%. More than that starts to get noticeable, maybe that's why. But it's there for just a slight, subtle bit of motion. And just keep in mind, we have to go back to that setup on push if you're going to use this related to push, and enable poly pressure on the setup tab. Setup is in the top right window. And I know that's not the brightest camera view, but yeah. So let me move this chat window out of my way so I can actually talk to you. There we go. Okay. Polyphonic pressure, really useful tool for especially chord-based material, harmonic material, pads, synths. Another application that we're going to find MPE commonly used, another application that we see expression becoming super important in the production and composition of that work is orchestral work, film music, and Ableton has partnered with Spitfire Audio, one of the leading film music and symphonic music library manufacturers in the business. Shout out to Christopher Henson, the film composer who co-founded Spitfire Audio. They've worked together to create a couple of different free sample libraries that come with Ableton 11. One of them is the string quartet library, and this is one of the instruments from that library, built into a audio effect rack. We can open up this thing. We can start to see what all is going on in here. In fact, inside of this one audio effect rack, we've got a number of different articulations of string instruments, some reverb, color, tone control, some mix controls, basically. And this is an MPE controllable version of their string quartet. So if we play this, this is an instrument in which pressure, in fact, there's a couple of different versions of this instrument. If we open up the sampler presets and look under MPE sounds, we'll see there are pressure, slide, and pressure and slide versions of these same instruments. I have the spectral loaded currently. And this uses pressure to achieve different articulations on the string instrument. These are long note performances, sustains, things like this. So as we apply more pressure, we go from sustained notes to a tremolo. More pressure, the heavier the tremolo gets. So it's very subtle, but the motion, the additional pressure on these pads gives us a little bit of a tonal change. And this allows us to control kind of the instruments in the quartet in a certain sense. So really kind of the music world, the music technology world is just scratched the surface of what's possible with MPE. The fact that it's now included in Ableton, which is a tool that really just takes MIDI and modulation to another level. I think this is going to open up a whole other world of possibilities for MPE, and yeah, and especially for musicians, for keyboardists, for people who are interested in kind of the future of digital instrument performance, which might not look like any instrument we've seen before. That's a very exciting thing. Okay, another major function that Ableton has been working on for a long time, and much requested functionality here, is comping. And comping is a function that we often see used in vocal production, especially, where we might take multiple takes of a vocal performance, of a, maybe one segment of a vocal performance, and pick out the best parts. Select, maybe the first 2 bars of the one performance was the best, and maybe one word was flubbed, and we can just kind of pick out and take one of those words to work with the rest of the performance that was otherwise very good. There's, I think, a great deal of information out there on YouTube and in the production world about comping and how comping works, especially with vocal production. So I don't necessarily want to tread ground that has been treaded many times before, but comping might take other forms, especially for electronic music production. For vocal production, absolutely critical. And the fact that it's in Ableton now is, I think, just super long overdue, maybe. But the maybe exciting part for us experimental electronic musicians is that we can use the same functionality for instrument performance and recording. We can use it for MIDI note recording and performance as well. And so comping is going to go, I think, a long way, even for those of us who aren't necessarily vocal producers. Sample library production as well. All of these things are going to be aided and made far more efficient by the ability to do comping. So let's take a look at some of that. I am going to create a short bass line in Reactor up here. Reactor, one of my favorite plugins. I have it running an instrument called laser bass, which is a bass instrument. Okay, so we've got some bass in there. Reactor responds to program change messages. Program change is one of the many things that we find in the MIDI specification, something that's been there long before MPE was added last year. It exists purely to allow us to switch presets, right? It's really designed so that, you know, the keyboardist in the wedding band can switch from Beat It, which we played, well, the last song we played, over to Piano Man, and we can play Piano Man next song on the, you know, in the wedding band. Or, you know, so Michael Jackson's keyboardist can switch presets, or Frank Zappa's keyboardist can change presets and get to the sounds that they need for the moment. However, sometimes presets are useful, sometimes they're not. I kind of want to find a way to make my bass line into something cool and gritty and dirty. So let's make a simple bass line. I'm just going to kind of zoom in here, make a 1-bar clip. I'm going to loop that clip. And we're going to take that clip and we're going to write a bass line. And yes, we will be coming back to clips in a moment here. Okay, let's just write a bass line, something simple. And maybe with higher velocity than 1. That might be good. Okay, it's a simple bass line, but not going for a hit yet. Just trying to make something simple. Let's make a little bit longer notes. It does sound kind of Pac-Man-ish, doesn't it? Okay, now I'm not the biggest fan of the sound, not maybe even the biggest fan of the loop, but things can get weird once we start doing some recording and some comping. So what we're going to do, we're going to loop this. We're going to choose an additional audio track. We're going to turn on resampling. Okay. And resampling will allow us to record anything coming out of any of our tracks here. Okay. So we can solo an individual track like Reactor. We'll arm this track to record, and we are going to hit record. What's going to happen when we hit record is track 4 is going to record the sound of Reactor 6 playing. Reactor 6 is going to continue to play and loop this loop, and channel 4 is going to record it and record it and record it. So what we can do is open up Reactor while it records and we can try tweaking the sound, changing presets. We can have some fun with this. So let's see what we find in the process. The great part about this is we don't have to worry about mistakes. Mistakes we can just cut out of the picture in a minute. We'll do this for a minute and see what we get. Let's actually hit record. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Now, right now, it's going to look just like it did when we were recording in Ableton 10 or 9 or 8, or maybe back to Ableton 3 or something like that. But all we have to do is right-click on our audio track and tell it to insert a take lane. Shift-Alt-T. It might be Shift-Command-T on Mac, or Option T. I have to check your menus. I'm on a PC right now. So when I click insert take lane, look what happens. All of a sudden, all those recordings that we just did, every loop, every 1-bar segment that was recorded has been laid out below our channel, below our audio track, in what are called lanes. Now, we can select which of these pieces we want to hear a couple of different ways. Let's first switch out of resampling and solo this track so we can hear it. So now if we play this, we're going to hear the last take that we did, which not a big fan of that one. So maybe we'll try one of the other takes. Here's the first take that we did. And we can highlight the part that we want to hear and hit enter. And it will select that part, inserting it up above on the actual track with the parts that were previously there. Okay, we could also turn on the pencil tool by hitting the B key on our keyboard, and we can just draw on the parts that we want. We've taken all of those different pieces. We've taken chunks of each one, and the results are up here. The results have been pieced together, right? We're just hearing the recorded audio now. Reactor 6 has been turned off. We're only hearing those pieces of audio that we're choosing down below by highlighting those segments. Again, when we're in pen tool mode, we can just highlight. When we're in outside of pen tool mode, we can just highlight a segment and hit the enter key. Boom. So just trying things out right now, seeing what works. Might have to do a little bit of timing tweaking to get it to work with the groove of that beat. But we're trying to use other ways of composing here, right? We're taking a short musical idea, having it played by a number of different musical instruments, essentially, and then piecing together things from this. Instead of Reactor, you could use Serum, Dubstep presets. We could try all kinds of stuff in there in the place of this particular synthesizer. Doesn't have to be basses. Could be chord progressions. Could be all kinds of wild stuff. And of course, we're going to commonly see this employed with vocals, but you know, not all of us work with vocals all the time, and there's still a lot of creative things that can be done with this material. Now, maybe another great application of comping starts to employ the clip editing functionality that we're seeing in the new instance of Ableton. So let's bring in this this drum groove. I just converted a drum groove from an audio loop up here. We're just going to mute some of our other channels here so we don't have to think so much about them. But we're going to take this groove that I converted, a super handy feature inside of Ableton. Find a loop that you like this thing. This was just in the Ableton library, by the way. I just looked under samples for drum loops. This was in there. What we can do is right click on any audio clip like this and have it convert the drums to a new MIDI track, right? It will analyze the drums. It will create a new MIDI clip, and it will try as best as it can to put drum hits, snare drum hits, hi-hat hits where it thinks they're supposed to be. And then you can swap out any drum kit to play that beat. So I swapped out this garage kit. Not exactly the same, but to shorten up the kick drum a little bit. But we got this thing going. We've got a beat, okay? But it's kind of static. You know, it's kind of doing the same thing over and over again. We'll stop this one and just focus on this one now. So I brought that over here to the timeline, and just so we can see, there it is in the timeline. Here it is down below, and there's our kick, there's our snare. Maybe we'll move that to the rim because that's kind of how it usually goes. Okay, it's cool, but I kind of feel like we could play around with this some more. And to make use of one of the new functions inside of Ableton 11, we're going to look over here to the left side of our clip, our note information inside of our clip. And there are a couple of show hide buttons. One of those is this one that's currently on. That's the velocity view. That shows us the velocity of our notes individually, right? When we click on a note, it highlights the corresponding velocity down below, and we can alter those things. This currently off show hide button covers probability, note chance, the probability that the note written in the clip will be played. And notice right now they're all set to 100%, right? Everything is set to 100% because Ableton assumes that's probably what we want. We probably, if we dictate some note information into the clip, especially if we're taking it from a clip that we're trying to exactly recreate, that audio clip that we analyzed a second, that we converted to a MIDI clip, it's going to assume we probably want to hear all those notes all the time. But what if we start playing with those things? That means that every time this thing plays, we're going to get variation. So maybe what we can do to clearly indicate this is we could select all of our notes and lower the probability of all of our notes. Okay, now this might be destructive because now a great deal of our beat, the entire beat, frankly, has a just greater than 50% chance of actually playing. We could set it to actually 50%. Every note that we see there has a 50% chance of playing, meaning that if we get really unlucky, it could play nothing, right? It's unlikely, but it could happen. So let's listen to what it sounds like now. As opposed to always the same every time. Right now it's a little bit out there. So maybe too much. And maybe this means that we need to focus our energies on certain things that maybe we need them to be there to get the job done, to like keep the train moving forward on the tracks, as opposed to just, you know, literally falling to pieces and then maybe with luck coming all back together down the track, which, you know, that could be cool, but you know, it could also be something that we want to control a little bit. So maybe we don't want everything to be 50%. One thing that we could try to maybe maintain the sort of, you know, the guts of this beat would be to not change the probability of the kick and the snare, perhaps just the hi-hats or other percussion instruments. So we could lower those to 50% or something less than 100%. And if we're going to do that, then it means the beat's going to be even more sparse than what is written here on the page. So that might lead us to say, okay, well, if we're going to like reduce the chance of things happening, maybe we need to throw a couple more things in there for the, you know, the hope that more things will show up. You know, maybe just, you know, the chance of things just completely disappearing is too high. So we can maybe take some of these longer notes and shorten them up a little bit. Oops, these are all percussion notes anyway, so they don't need to be that long. And let's write in a couple of extra notes here. Just filling in some space. Notice that put those at 100% probability. So maybe we will select all of our hi-hats again. We can drag everything all the way down or up to the top, and it kind of flattens everything out. And now everything will be okay. So we're starting to get a little bit of variation, and that means that maybe we could create more variation down the line. This is just a 2-bar clip. We could, you know, one nice thing about Ableton and the way it handles note information is we can take this whole clip and we can duplicate it. Notice here in the notes section, we can reverse our notes, we can invert our notes, which, you know, those might not make a lot of sense right now to do per se, but duplicating just turns that 2-bar loop into a 4-bar loop, right? Now all of a sudden we've got a 4-bar loop. We have to accommodate for that up above. But hey, you know what happens at the end of a 4-bar loop or an 8-bar loop sometimes is we get a drum fill. So maybe we could, you know, throw a couple of additional, like, you know, hits down here at the end, and we'll make all of those maybe like a weirder, lower probability. You know, so every time it comes around, it's going to play something a little different, something a little busier, but something a little different, right? Maybe we could even throw in a couple more hi-hat hits in there. Let's listen to what this sounds like now. So it's just going to, you know, loose, light hi-hat probability up until the end of the 4-bar group. Might also help to apply the timing, the note groove and timing that we have on this groove to this fill, right? Like some of these 16th notes are really supposed to be a little bit late there. You know, you don't have to go through the precise timing of these things right now, but you know, we can get pretty close and the whole thing will start to feel a little bit more funky and a little bit more, you know, garage like, if that's a thing. That's a little bit better. A little bit funkier now, right? Got to have those syncopated 16th notes. So now what do we do? Well, now we turn our timing back on. Let's create a new audio track. Boom. Let's set it to resampling. Boom. Let's take the signal from our garage kit. That's what's going to be resampled. And we're going to record it. And we're going to let it record some passes. We're going to see if it hits something that we like, right? Like, doesn't need to be more complicated than that. Let's hit record. And while it's doing that, well, I guess I have to wait till it's done recording to switch to take view here. We're going to let it do that. We could also switch it beforehand. But while it's recording, I guess it doesn't want to do much. This is like the, you know, 4th or 5th time through or something. It's going to give us some good options. Okay, so there we go. There's kind of what recording over a long period of time in a loop looks like inside of Ableton for those of us who have been doing it for years. All right, it's one long audio clip essentially, but we insert that take lane, and all of a sudden we can view each of those things a little bit differently, and we can now listen to each one of these things, and you can see very slight differences, not nearly as different the waveforms from one take to the next as those bass lines were, because the bass lines were completely different sounds each time. This time they look almost exactly the same. There's a couple of spots in there, right? Like in here, we can see, oh, this one didn't play those two. This one only played that one. This one played two. This one played that one. That one played this one, right? So we can see where the probability is starting to have some effect here, hopefully. And here at the end, probably, maybe, hopefully the most different, where we have a little bit of the variation inside of those fills. Not even that different, it sounds like. Let's just loop the last bar here. And we will turn this track back on so we can hear it. This one off. That one has the hi-hat hit in that last one. This one doesn't. You know, it's like little things sometimes go a long way. And are there other ways that we could have done this before Ableton 11? Probably. But the smoothness of this, the universal functionality of comping, of being able to just kind of like highlight from a number of takes. This is one of the things us poor Ableton guys and girls were waiting for. We're so jealous of all of you Logic folks having access to for so long. Well, you can just click and highlight and boom, it's in there. This is like one of the coolest things for us to see in a long time. So very exciting. Neat to see it applicable outside of the vocal range. We could even do all of this stuff on a new Midi track, right? We could record on a Midi track from our garage kit and record the Midi notes coming out, right? The probability-based Midi notes. So if we do this, here, we'll mute the audio here. Let's start it in the right place. So now it's, you know, randomizing the fills. Okay, so now what we've done is, you know, let's forget this audio. Who likes audio? We like working with MIDI notes. Now what we've done is we've created multiple takes of the fourth bar of our clip. Each one of the bars that we've recorded is another drum fill. And we can look at each of those takes, right? We could even move this up here directly to the lane up there. We could insert the take line up there. Oh, I better do that in a different way. Let's take all of this stuff and just move it up there, because now all that MIDI stuff we recorded is going to play in the garage kit. Hopefully this works. Oh, no, it didn't. We're going to move our takes up there then. There we go. Now they're in there. Oh boy. Okay. Let's do this another way. Let's undo. Let's go back to where we recorded. We're going to move the original clip to our new MIDI track. This will be much easier. And then move our drum kit to that track. It's definitely an easier way to do that, but I haven't had enough time with the comping to know. Okay, here we go. So there's the MIDI playing our normal beat, and it gets to this bit. So now we're comping MIDI clips, right? Now we're just comping the different takes of recorded MIDI notes that were the result of all that probability-based drum filling, I suppose. So a lot of really cool ways to use that stuff. You know, start combining that with some of these new audio effects that we got access to, something like spectral time or the spectral resonator. Pretty weird sounding drum kit.
Well, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, right.
Just a little time watch, Joe.
Yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say, you know, like I said, this isn't by any means a thorough overview of every different function in Ableton 11. I would encourage you guys to, you know, check out the Ableton YouTube channel. They've got a number of videos highlighting some basic application of the use of these functions. There are a number of great YouTubers out there who are walking through every different new feature. And, you know, as we have to do in the music technology world, we have to learn from many sources and source this information so that we get thorough answers. And again, back it up with a glance at the Ableton manual. It'll go a long, long way. When you find something you like, read the 2 or 3 pages they have about it. I guarantee it's light reading and it will make your life a million times better. Uh-oh, Ableton Live. Oh, there we go. I got a pull.
Sorry about that, Joe.
Oh, it's okay.
That was me. Just throwing a quick polling question for the for our audience there.
While we're doing that, Joe, I saved a few questions for you from the chat that I just wanted to. I was thinking to answer them, but I figured we could have you knock them all out at once.
Sure.
A few people were looking for the MPE sounds, but we're not able to find those. Is that from a pack, or does it come bundled with the Live 11?
Great question.
Full
inside of Ableton, I have those questions brought up here now so I can actually see what everyone was saying to me this whole time. the packs that I was using, specifically that string pack, was one of the Spitfire audio packs, and those can be found in your Ableton browser under Places, and then under Packs. And if you select Packs, then you can see up here, these are the ones that I've already downloaded. Under Available Packs, at the bottom, bless you, at the bottom of that list, these are all things that I could download that are free and that are available to me inside of the suite. And this is where you'll find the Spitfire audio bundle. There it is, String Quartet by Spitfire Audio. There's another one called Grass Quartet. I haven't downloaded that one yet because I didn't have time. There's also Upright Piano by Spitfire Audio. And while we're talking about Spitfire Audio, if you want more great free instruments, check out Labs from Spitfire Audio. Every month they put out a new library that loads as a plugin inside of your DAW. It's a fantastic bundle. They make great sounding stuff. You know, depends on what you're making, I suppose, but these are great packs. All of the stuff that's in here is free. Like I said, it all comes for free with Ableton, all of which is fantastic, either presets, instruments, racks, or samples. And you know, if you want to get deeper into Max for Live, for instance, this is the place to start. There are a number of really fantastic Max for Live bundles for free in there. Max for Live Essentials, definitely the place to start. You're going to start seeing Max for Live devices in some of your audio and MIDI effects and instruments, for that matter. There's a drum synthesizer Max for Live devices, really useful devices. And they just explode Ableton's functionality even further than what's already available. So check out the packs, check out the available packs, make sure you have enough hard drive space to download them. That would be my only other note.
Yes, I threw a link to the packs page on the Ableton site, which I
Perfect.
have downloaded a ton of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff there. It's free.
Oh yeah, there's even more stuff on their website. Yeah.
Dude, it's kind of unwieldy how much stuff there is. And
Yeah.
you know, that's not even talking about Max for Live devices, which are just, you know, in every crevice of the internet.
And I don't necessarily recommend you go and you know, get every one of those things per se. You know, a lot of the things that we see in this menu are samples and presets for the tools that we already have. So you don't have to necessarily go and grab everything at once, but you know, get the things that speak to you, get those things that seem like they're going to make sense. And you know, even one thing will kind of blow up your tool set even more so. So yeah, really lots of great add-on material for Max for Live, or for Live. And then when you get into Max for Live, it's a whole other ballgame. Okay, I also see a question here. How would the live tempo follow work in the context of using Ableton Link with Serato DJ? Good question. That is another new feature. If you notice up in my left-hand corner on Ableton, there is a follow button. And if we go into the preferences in Ableton here, if I don't, instead of opening the preferences for Zoom, I'm going to try to open the preferences for Ableton. And on the Link Tempo MIDI tab of our preferences window, there's a new function called Tempo Follower. And the Tempo Follower, just make sure it says show here, and that way you'll see that button at the top. And when you turn that on, there's an item here that says input channel. This is Ableton listening to an input device on your computer for tempo information, right? So you would want to set this to, right now it's set to my microphone, which is kind of not going to be the best, but actually I could probably try it. I don't know if this is going to be chaotic because I'm going to do it based on like human beatboxing. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let you guys talk me into beatboxing on camera. I'm going to leave this to you guys to practice. But the idea is, especially on Mac, where it's very easy to do inter-application audio, you can route audio from like a YouTube video to play into Ableton turn on the follow, and get it going. Here's the way that we can do it. I'm not going to beatbox, I'm sorry, but if I turn on a beat, maybe I have a safe copyright free drum beat that I can just play from iMachine 2 or something like this. And check. Okay, I think it's this. Okay, this is hardly a beat, but to tell Ableton to go. It's not getting the right tempo. It's not even really a full beat. I'll stop you. Okay, I think this is something that I have not tested fully, so you can see it's not exactly going according to plan here, and it's harder on PC than it is on Mac. But the bigger picture is Ableton is listening to an input device, meaning a microphone in the room. If you have your drum kit in the room or a drum machine in the room, you could plug your drum machine directly into your audio interface, and it will track that beat as it comes in, and it will do its best to match that tempo in the Ableton timing. It'll try to find beats, and it'll try to keep the tempo on point. Yeah, that's hard. It's a very difficult thing for software to pull off functionally where it still sounds good. So, my feeling is temper your expectations about such a function. With Serato, it should work pretty well because you're probably DJing tracks that have a pretty rigid beat, and it should be easier to pull off. With live performance, it might be harder, but it's the demos that I've seen have been very accurate. I just haven't come up with a good setup for it yet, to be perfectly honest, clearly. Okay, let's see. MPE sounds, MPE. Okay, yeah, that was the question about the sampler presets that I downloaded in the string quartet library. Those will be under instruments, and then there's a whole separate MPE folder. In most of the presets in our instruments, like in the wavetable presets, I think that's already going to be built into those presets. If we load like a pad instrument up here, for instance, we have to load a preset. Let's see. Let's try to find evolution. Maybe this will have something already built into it. Notice that on wavetable, MPE is already included there. And yeah, it looks like oscillator 1 position is mapped to pressure and other MPE settings. So if we were to play this on the Rolly keyboard, we should be able to automatically get some performance flexibility out of it. Very subtle change that it's doing in this particular case, but the pressure to more. Whoops, not that. Oh, you left, right, not pitch. So the MPE sound should be, in a sense, already programmed into certain instruments, but with the sample instruments, those do require kind of like a separate, they have to have kind of a lot of samples extra, I think, probably to make that pull, to pull that off. So, okay, I have Ableton 11 Suite updated since yesterday, and I'm not seeing the MP. Okay, hopefully covered that one. The chant tells us what notes will come through when we play. Exactly. Now, the chants that we looked at inside of the clips, right? I'm just erasing things now. Okay, there we go. The chants functionality, this probability lane down here, this is specifically dealing with the notes inside of the clip, right? So the chants is disconnected to you're actually playing notes by hand per se. There are ways to deal with that. There are some great MIDI effects that deal with randomization. The random MIDI effect deals with randomizing what note is played. So if you play a note, then it, there's a chance it will play a different note. The velocity MIDI effect has a velocity randomization function. So you could randomize, very low or zero velocity notes sometimes. So there are ways that we can make that happen with live performance, but in terms of the notes inside of a clip, that's kind of where the chance takes over. And it's really, it's not so much if it will be drowned out by the bass. It's more about whether, it's just kind of like a 0 to 100% probability that the note will even be played. It's not related to other sounds like, say, sidechain compression. Now, I suppose in theory, like, in kind of taking your idea to the next level here, the idea of using kick drums to affect bass via sidechain. If we applied probability to the kick drums and occasionally there were no kick drums, then our sidechain would probably be thrown way off, right? So that's maybe an example of the type of sound that we don't want to apply so much probability to, if any, especially in dance music where that kick drum and the sidechain need to be there to kind of keep that train on the tracks in a sense. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where we're going there. Is Complete Control MPE compatible, meaning the keyboard? I do not believe so. There are only a few MPE compatible devices. Now, Complete Control, I believe some of those keyboards, the S series, I believe, has aftertouch and poly pressure. So you can probably do some of these pressure-based items, right? Push isn't an MPE controller either, technically. It's just kind of making accessible the idea of polyphonic pressure for each of the pads on push. And that is sort of connecting to what MPE can do, right? MPE goes a little bit, maybe much deeper with a couple of additional expression methods, expression values, I suppose. But the A series Complete Control keyboards, which I have, do not have aftertouch and poly pressure, sadly. So that's why I brought out the good old push today. Tempo follow will work with melodies from sample packs. In theory, yes. That should, in theory, work. However, in Ableton, you might find it easier to simply warp those loops that you get from sample packs. Like melodies will probably usually come in the form of a 4 or 8 bar looping bit of audio, and so you might not have to do all that that much work and using tempo following to get that job done, as much as just warping your tracks, making sure your audio clips are properly warped and playing in sync with your Ableton project. How is the MPE functionality with Novation launch key? I don't know. I haven't tried the Novation launch key, but I know that I do have a Novation launch pad from their original run, and they have really improved all those products immeasurably from the first iteration. I mean, there wasn't much competition in the first time around, and they still changed the game with that. But all of those devices that we see that Novation's been putting out are really popular, stripped down to do the things that people want them to do, and not wasting time with other stuff. I don't know about the MPE functionality though. I didn't even know that it had it, to be perfectly honest. I haven't looked at it enough.
List of controllers that support MPE. There's a lot of people asking this question. The list is still pretty short. But...
yeah, it's a new breed. Check out Roli, R-O-L-I. Roli, they make the Roli blocks, which are a wireless MPE controller system. They're really cool. The instrument, Sensel Morph, is, I think, one of the coolest instruments out there. I would have had mine here, but I've misplaced it. so I don't have it set up today. But that's probably the most affordable one of them all, the Sensel Morph, and it's got some other really cool, quirky things about it. I don't know if the MPC has MPE functionality. Seems like they should have MPE functionality on an MPC, but the MPC stands for something different than MPE. So I don't know if it has true MPE functionality there. If you use chants while composing music for worship, then it's called Gregorian chants. I love that. That's my mom was a traditional music was once a traditional music theory teacher, and so that hits close to home. Thank you. Other questions? I saw Travarsi asked a question. What's up, Travarsi?
I think she left. She sent a DM, but she was curious about.
I saw that about the
TV randomizer, some crazy modular thing. Knowing her.
Oh yes, and the probability I think she'd asked about. So we
Right.
touched a little bit on that, and yeah.
It'll have to be a part 2.
Other questions? Any other thoughts? Are projects from version 10 compatible with version 11? Definitely. However, if you do a project in version 11 and your friend is working in Ableton 10, not so much. They're not going to be able to open that project. So be ready for that. Check with your friends and make sure that they're on the same level. Push 3 coming soon?
I hope not. I don't have money.
Yeah, I couldn't afford it probably, but I can imagine that Ableton wants to fully integrate this new functionality into their controller system. That's just pure speculation on my part, and we'll see.
It'd be great if they would add some knobs you can actually use while you're performing Ableton.
These knobs are, yeah, they're maybe not the best knobs for.
Not for performing.
If you're slamming your keyboard around or slamming your push around, then maybe not so much. But okay, wait. Someone raised their hand.
I think we're good.
Good.
If anyone else has any further questions, feel free to hit us up at MI. We'd love to hear from you guys. I mean, we could answer questions for 10,000 hours, I think, but I've been posting some links. There's quite a few people that have asked for more beginner stage stuff. So I've been posting your Let's Build a Track.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Nope.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah, our MI blog is a good place for, introductory tutorial type stuff on everything from songwriting to, the ethos of defining your sound as an electronic music producer. You name it, selecting a sound card, a microphone, you name it. So hit up our channel. Joe's got a great sound design masterclass that he did as well. It's over there. So yeah, make it happen.
Thanks so much for coming, you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Hey, Lacey, I just want to do one last plug real quick. I also put in the chat there about our next open house.
Oh, that's right.
On March 13th. So if you guys want to just learn more about MI and the programs, check that out. And I was chatting with someone else and they reminded me about our summer program. So again, if you guys want to, just so everyone knows, we have individual classes that MI offers, but also if you just want to do a short program, we have a 1 to 2 week summer program. So I just put that in the chat. You guys can get more information on that page.
Yeah, come hang out with us.
Yeah, exactly. Hang out for a week or 2. Thanks so much for doing this, Joe. That was awesome.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming, everybody. It was great to have people to talk to.
Yeah,
indeed.
Absolutely.
Have a great weekend. I know it's not there yet, but we can all dream.
Exactly. We're almost there.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Bye.